In the quiet city of Odessa, Texas, December is usually a time of lights, gatherings, and families preparing for the holidays. But on the night of December 9th, everything changed for one family in the most devastating way imaginable. What unfolded inside a small apartment on East 87th Street left an entire community shaken, investigators stunned, and a young girl trapped between heartbreak and unthinkable grief. This is the story of a tragedy that no one saw coming, a story that has left the Odessa community asking how something so horrific could happen, and why it unfolded the way it did. It began with what looked like nothing more than a teenage relationship, a short-lived connection between two young people, both navigating the emotional ups and downs that come with adolescence. For most teenagers, breakups feel overwhelming, even dramatic, but they tend to heal with time. But in this case, the breakup didn't simply lead to hurt feelings. It spiraled into something terrifying, something no one involved could have predicted. The teenage boy at the center of this story was only 17 years old. At his age, the world can feel confusing, unpredictable, and emotionally intense. But according to investigators, his reaction to the end of his relationship took a dark and dangerous turn. Though the details of his emotional state remain unknown, what is clear is that something inside him shifted in the days leading up to the tragedy. And on December 9th, he made a decision that would forever change the lives of everyone connected to him. That evening, inside the apartment where the family lived, things were calm. The mother, 39-year-old Jessica Rodriguez, was spending time with her children, 13-year-old Kylie and 9-year-old Jacob. Jessica had built her life around her children, a dedicated mother who worked hard, supported her family, and tried to give her kids stability and love. The apartment was a place where they felt safe. It was where birthdays were celebrated, where homework was done at the kitchen table, and where the kids felt protected by the woman who adored them. But investigators say the teenager had been planning something. At some point that night, he approached the apartment while armed with a handgun. How he obtained the weapon and what he had been thinking in those moments are questions that remain under investigation. What is known is that he entered the apartment and confronted the family. The details of that confrontation are still being put together by detectives, but they have made one thing clear. It was a targeted attack. Jessica was killed. Her daughter Kylie, just 13, who should have had her whole future in front of her, also lost her life. And Jacob, just 9 years old, a child who should have been thinking about school, games, and holiday excitement, was killed as well. The surviving daughter, the ex-girlfriend, was present during the attack, but she was physically unharmed. Police and investigators have not released many details about her condition, but it's clear that emotionally she has been left with memories and trauma no child should ever have to carry. When the first emergency calls started coming in, Odessa's law enforcement agencies responded with urgency. The nature of the situation was immediately clear. They weren't dealing with a missing person or break-in. This was something far more serious. Officers quickly secured the area and began searching for the suspect. According to Chief of Police Michael Jerk, the community's safety was the department's top priority, and within 40 minutes they located and detained the teenage boy near the scene. He was taken into custody without further incident, and the firearm used in the attack was recovered. For investigators, the speed at which they found him prevented him from potentially harming anyone else. But it did nothing to ease the pain of what had already happened. News of the tragedy spread with incredible speed across Odessa. Parents were shaken. Students were heartbroken. Neighbors gathered in disbelief, struggling to understand what could drive a young person to commit such a devastating act. When Police Chief Jerk spoke about the case, he called it a tragic and cowardly act, a crime made even more painful because it took place during the holiday season, a time when families should be celebrating, not grieving. While investigators worked to piece together the events leading up to the attack, the community rallied around the one surviving child. A fundraising effort was launched, with people across Odessa and beyond donating to help her with future expenses, housing needs, counseling, and support. The outpouring of love showed just how deeply the tragedy had affected everyone who heard about it. A community vigil was organized. Residents gathered together, holding candles, sharing prayers, and sending love to the surviving daughter. Friends of the family spoke about how kind Jessica was, how devoted she had been to her children, and how much potential her young children had. The vigil became a symbol of unity, a moment where the community refused to let violence define them. Instead, they focused on compassion, healing, and honoring the lives lost. Back at the Ector County Youth Center, the teenage suspect now faces capital murder charges, the most serious charges possible. Because of his age, the legal process may be complex. Texas law allows juveniles accused of severe violent crimes to be tried as adults under certain circumstances. But these decisions require court processes, psychological evaluations, and the involvement of prosecutors and juvenile justice officials. The district attorney's office has not yet announced whether they will pursue adult certification, but they have confirmed that the charges reflect the gravity of what happened. For investigators, the next steps involve retracing the teen's movements before the attack, reviewing his digital activity, interviewing family members, classmates, and friends, and determining whether there were warning signs or threats made beforehand. School records, social media interactions, and phone data may play a crucial role in understanding what led to this tragedy. It's possible that emotional distress, jealousy, or anger contributed to his actions. But until the full investigation is complete, those questions remain open. As the legal case moves forward, psychological experts will likely be called in to evaluate the teenager. Courts often want to understand whether a juvenile defendant had the emotional maturity to fully comprehend the consequences of their actions. But no evaluation, no expert testimony, and no legal process can undo what has happened. 3 innocent lives have been lost, and a surviving girl must now rebuild her life without her mother and siblings, and with the trauma of witnessing the violence firsthand. Odessa residents have continued to support her, sending messages of love, offering donations, and making sure she knows she isn't alone. Counselors, school staff, and crisis response teams are helping students and community members cope with the emotional aftershocks. This case has also sparked deeper conversations about teen relationships, emotional health, and the warning signs that can sometimes go unnoticed in young people. Teachers, counselors, and parents across Texas have discussed the importance of recognizing changes in behavior, sudden anger, or troubling communication patterns in teenagers. These conversations are not meant to assign blame, but to prevent future tragedies and help young people navigate emotional challenges safely. As the investigation continues, more details will emerge. The courts will determine what consequences the suspect will face, and the community will continue supporting the surviving daughter as she works to heal. But even as time passes, The memory of Jessica, Kylie, and Jacob will remain with those who love them. Their lives will continue to be honored at community gatherings, school events, and family memorials. This tragedy is a reminder of how fragile life can be, how quickly everything can change, and how deeply violence affects families and communities. It is also a reminder of the strength people can show when they come together in mourning and support. Odessa will not forget what happened, but they will also not let this tragedy break the community's spirit. As investigators continue to seek answers, one truth remains clear. 3 lives were lost far too soon, and the ripples of this event will be felt for years to come. But through unity, compassion, and support, the community hopes to bring some measure of healing to a young girl who has already endured more than anyone ever should.